I have a question for all of you. Do you crave video game violence? Are guns and energy weapons just not doing it anymore? Craving something more creative? More personal? Well, I've got a game for you. How y'all doing? It's been a while since we did any immersive sims. Let's fix that. I was planning on doing a video about Moon Crash around now, but then some stuff happened, and that's on hold while I catch up with a bunch of other things because I have more pressing deadlines. Just make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it out when it comes, hopefully next month. Like a lot of things that have been hopefully next month for a while. However, I found something new for you all that I simply must talk about. Something that I was expecting to come out much later in the year, but we got a special surprise demo dropping into our laps to coincide with an Indiegogo campaign. Let me tell y'all about CORPUS EDAX. CORPUS EDAX is a first-person melee RPG by its own definition, and is made by one Luis, who's been working on it all by his lonesome for some time now. It was one of my upcomers at the end of the year ImSim video and was slated to go live towards the end of the year, be it full release or early access. However, now, to help ensure that, Luis has launched an Indiegogo campaign to get the funding he needs to work on the game full-time. CORPUS EDAX takes place in the far future where humanity has left Earth for the most part and now live in megacities like the namesake CORPUS EDAX. People don't like the megacity life though, and some folks have started an underground movement called the Salvation. It was going pretty okay till they all got caught, and now they're all in prison in a big hole. But Charl, I hear you say. Didn't you say that your policy was demos don't get videos? And yes, you are correct. That is my rule. But it's my rule, so I get to choose when to bend it. We'll go more into depth later in the video though about why we have the rule and when we can bend it later. For now though, it's time to wake up in a big hole and start hurting people. The first thing you're gonna notice about CORPUS EDAX is there are absolutely no guns. I don't know if guns ever will get added in a small extent later, but the game's main idea is all about the fun ways you can sever someone's divine light without the use of a firearm. You start the demo as a guy named Jackson who is supposed to be in charge of this whole salvation movement, but that hasn't been going too well since you've been in this hole for a good 5 years now. You get the attention of the other prisoner across from you and you're given a choice. Stealth or violence? Don't worry, you can do both. You start with your fists and a shiv if you choose to grab it from under the pillow in the prison bed, and later on you'll find that there's no weapons locker, no secret stash of guns, not even any designated blunt weapons like a baton or a projectile weapon like some kind of crossbow. If you want to take someone else out in the hole, you gotta get up close and personal, and you gotta get creative. Don't you worry. You've still got lots of ways to do this, and your starting weapons, your bare fists and your boot, are damn fine tools. This isn't so much of a situation like I found myself in with Sons of the Forest more recently, where you just mash left click until you win, and so long as you keep your eye on your stamina, you'll be fine. No, this is something of a stamina system, as I see that Jackson peters out if I just keep on throwing jabs, and you're gonna need to time your blows, but you're also going to need to vary your style if you don't want the guards to just wait you out by blocking and then knocking you onto your ass when you tuck her out. Another thing that isn't explicitly told to you anywhere that is very important is that there are combos that you can figure out for yourself. Doing the right amount of punches and kicks in rapid succession will perform a special move. So far the ones I figured out are how to do a sweeping kick that was highly likely to knock someone down, and also how to knee someone in the face when they're stunned by a rapid succession of punches. And we haven't even gotten into the actual weapons yet. Anything can be a weapon in CORPUS EDAX. If you can pick it up or tear it off the walls, it can be used for violence. Your starting shiv can be used for its intended purpose, or you can use it like a poor man's shuriken, which, so long as it connects, will take out half a guard's health pool at the very least at the cost of your shiv. Even without bullets though, headshots are very effective in this game if you can pull them off. Your first weapon after that will most likely be a piece of pipe ripped right off the wall, or a hammer some guy was using for the lame reasons, you know, just fixing a thing. But it doesn't stop there. You can whack dudes in the face with boxes, with chairs, with other dudes, with doorstops, or basically anything you can pick up off the ground. Even broken pieces of stuff like chairs or big shards of glass can be used to get the job done. Oh, and you can throw all that stuff too. That's right, we're going full Dark Messiah here. Except this time the kick isn't being used so much as a crutch for not being able to take the time to fully finish your highly set-piece dependent game, but instead, the game is built around throwing and kicking things. Anything can be kicked into anything else, and while you're not always going to send a dude into space, it is very satisfying to get all the timing and positioning right to kick a dude off a ledge into the hole. And the shivs aren't the only thing that can be thrown like shuriken. Throwing boxes, while not exactly a catastrophic blow to someone's health pool, is a guaranteed stun on a baddie, and it's fun to watch the boxes explode in the dude's face. You can also throw chairs, and then later on, when the chair breaks, grab one of the legs and use that as a club to finish the job. You can also throw your improvised weapons like the hammer and sections of pipe, which do a real fat chunk of damage to a guy if you're feeling confident enough to use your hands after the fact. It is a struggle to pick things up in the middle of the fight if you're not so confident in your hand-to-hand, but that kind of makes sense as a guy's trying to wail on you right now, and it's like a real fight where you're gonna have to divide your attention very carefully. I'll also admit that I had a hard time at first with barehanded combat, as it's something you gotta learn, but once you do, it's quite rewarding. And of course, there's all that other good Simmy stuff in Corpus Edax, like stealth, the obligatory lockpicking and hacking minigames, and other stuff like speech checks dependent on what you've done in the game so far. Stealth is, well, stealth. Press C to crouch and use a subtle bonk to knock out guys without having to fight them. But also, you get the slide. It's not quite the designated swoop button from Thief Orf, but it's fun. I like how, at least in this build of the game, failing stealth isn't an instant restart, as Jackson is still competent enough to hold his own in a fight if he gets discovered. Then there's those obligatory hacking and lockpicking minigames, which yeah, they're some sort of contrivance that makes it take a while to get a room open or get access to a computer. However, hacking or lockpicking a thing will get you points in a certain category like intuition or something like that, or impetus I think it was, which you use for speech checks later. Also, neither of these games are really all that complicated. Hacking is just click on the green lights until you fill the bar. Lockpicking is move the mouse around until you find the sweet spot. It also helps that once you hack one thing, at least in the demo, you don't need to hack each and every individual machine. Say you hack a door pad in one of the doors in a hallway, you don't need to play the hacking minigame for every door in that hallway because you already figured out how to break into that thing. Also, a nice little touch that I especially like for the lockpicking minigame is that you can just kick the damn door down. That's right, not feeling sitting through that minigame or finding a guard with a key or whatever on them? Just hold kick to use your mighty foot to knock that sucker down. Even in this little demo, Corpus Edax is great with stuff like that. The whole level was meant to be extensively explored and has tons of alternate paths and offshoots to check out. It's more than possible to ghost this demo, and there are plenty of ways to get into any sort of room. Sneak in and pick the lock, kick the door down, throw something hearted through the glass to break it and jump through the window, hack the keypad, use ventilation shafts, or intentionally let a guy see you so that he'll run through the door to try to fight you, unlocking it in the process. Exploration is a lot of fun too. One of my favorite things to do in the demo is finding a way to get into the big hole. At first you think it's just set dressing and possibly a death hazard until you look closely and realize there's collectibles in there. Then it's all a matter of cheesing your way down there, strategically using your little sit down rest to heal a little while rationing your consumables until you're all the way down to the very bottom of the hole. And yes, you were definitely supposed to be down there. There's lots of stuff to get and there's secrets. There's all sorts of odd things to see in the prison like that. I think it's time we had an especially cursed cooking segment. So as some of you might have seen, Kentucky Fried Chicken's infamous Double Down sandwich is finally back. For those of you among us that aren't from America, the Double Down is a sandwich in the loosest of terms. The Double Down is 2 fried chicken breasts for bread with bacon, pepper jack cheese, and some kind of sauce in the middle. The only thing we presently know about the sandwich itself is that it is nearly 1,000 calories, and it was disappointing if I'm being honest. I decided that I will make the Double Down, but worse. That's right, we're not whooping out the $600-something dehydrator or whatever. We are finding new and very cost-effective ways to recreate this meat pile with maximum pain in mind. First order of business is the chicken itself. We're gonna thaw our stuff over running water or just cool standing water if you've got time on your hands. Then we're gonna butterfly the breasts or outright cut them in half. Salt them lightly on both sides before placing on a half-sheet pan or whatever you got between a bunch of paper towels, and then put that in the fridge under a bunch of stuff to flatten it out. Why do we do this? Well, I'm gonna make a point here. I'm taking one of these breasts and not pressing the excess water or filling or whatever it is out of it, and then I'm gonna try and cook it on the pan. Going like this, I let it go for a full 6 minutes and change on each side, which is really too long for chicken. And even then, despite the outside basically being rubber at this point, I cut it down the middle and it is still not done. It is completely goddamn pink in the middle. I gave up on this little experiment because even with covering the pan to try and just create more overall heat, if I wanted to cook this through, it'd be shoe leather by the time it temped out. This is in part because while frying could circumvent this, most non bougie chicken is pumped with so much extra fluid to make them bigger and therefore sell less meat for more money than unless you bake it or deep fry it, and then you do that for a long time, which by then they'll be overdone and overly chewy beyond the point of enjoyment. All that excess water is going to prevent the chicken from cooking properly. So in order to get it safe to eat, you have to overcook it, because you're not just cooking it, you're trying to wring all that excess water out. Even after abandoning my experiment and butterflying this chicken breast to properly cook it, it was still all rubbery and lame by the time I finally got it into some other food stuff. Now let's check in on the other chicken now that it's been pressing out overnight. Look at that. We got all the stock or whatever it is out, and now they're a nice flat shape for breading. We only have the meat here that we actually want to cook, but we can do better. We're gonna cover our breast halves in some saran wrap underneath the little cutting board here, and then we're gonna use our tenderizer to annihilate the breast halves into nice flat pieces. Not like veal thin, and you'll want to shoot more for like 1/2 to 1/4 inch thick for optimum pain. Now let's bread them. We're gonna go 1 part flour, 1 part egg wash, 1 part panko crumbs. Add whatever herbs and spices you want to your flour or your crumbs, because all I'm adding is an appetite for suffering. Now we're gonna double bread these for maximum coverage and crunch. But specifically, we're gonna bread them once, let them sit out while we bread the others, and then after it's been a few minutes while we're breading the other things, then we are going to put the breaded breast back into the egg wash and then the panko crumbs so that it has a time to absorb and form a solid little seal of breading. That's how we get the maximum coverage, and that's how we avoid having like just all the breading fall off like it does on the actual double down. Now, let them rest for a while so that the effect can take hold again, and crank El Horno to 350 freedom heat units while we get a pan on the stove. Okay, get some thick bacon for this one. We're gonna want to cook these thick pieces in the pan for as long as possible. We want our bacon to be very well done and crunchy. A big problem I had with the new double down is not only did all that breading fall right off, and the fact that they didn't properly press out or butterfly the chicken made it hard to get your mouth around the sandwich, but it was all mushy on the inside because the bacon tasted like it was pre-cooked and all rubbery. We are making our bacon crunchy so we have something to eat. Fry them up 3 at a time, and we're gonna have 3 per sandwich here. So that's like however many rounds for however many you're gonna make. Please do not make more than 2 of these. Also, reserve that bacon grease. It's useful. Once the bacon's done, place the strips on a wire rack to dry out and acquire more crunch through drip drying. Hey, you know what would be really messed up? What if we fried the chicken breast in bacon grease? Well, it's a good thing I have a bunch more reserved bacon fat to make that possible. Yes, I am actually doing this. I am doing this for the video, and I am doing it for pain. I cannot recommend that you do this though, because science. You see, the bare minimum temperature for frying something is 325 degrees of freedom heat units, or preferably 375. Guess what bacon fat's smoke point is? That's right, 325 degrees. This smoked up a storm while I was frying them, and I had to turn on all the vents, open all the windows, and even open the door to my house just to avoid getting smoked out. Use vegetable oil or something that's actually meant for frying if you're gonna do this. Regardless, we're not gonna fry these for too long, as the reason we preheated our oven is to finish it in there. We're literally only going to fry these chicken patties for color. Fry the patties 2 at a time for only a couple minutes or so on each side until you've got that nice golden brown color. These aren't gonna hit temp by a mile, but that's why we've got the oven. Move your bacon aside and let the fried breast drip off for a little bit before placing them onto a parchment-lined baking sheet and tossing into the oven for 15 minutes. In the meantime, it's time to make that cheese sludge. Time is of the essence. Take half a stick of butter and melt it in a high-walled saucepan. Then slowly add in flour until it sort of becomes a paste. Then add cream or half and half until the paste becomes a thicker liquid. People call this bechamel or something, but I call it the base of the cheese sludge. We're making 2 different kinds of cheese sludge here, so we need to act fast. Take some grated cheese, which I'm sure you did beforehand because you're smart like that, and start adding it to your thickened liquid until it becomes a thicker sludge. Keep stirring. It'll smooth out after a couple minutes. Once it's all smooth-ish, and you can lightly scrape a wooden spoon or something over the bottom of the pan and see the bottom for a second, it's ready. Quickly pour out your cheese sludge into a heat-safe container and start the next batch immediately. For this one, we're doing 1 batch of pepper jack to stay true to the original formula, which I've also made a bit on the thicker side for reasons you'll understand in a sec, and then another batch of cheddar for that wonderful radioactive yellow food coloring. If you're slick, you should have just enough time to make both of these before it's time to pull the breasts out. It's assembly time. First, we match up the halves of the chicken breast for maximum cohesion. Then, we use the thick pepper jack cheese sludge to form a sort of foundation to lay the bacon strips on so they'll stay in place. This fixes the problem of the double down falling apart. Now, on top of the bacon and the first fatty and all that stuff, we have a generous smattering of the yellow cheese sludge on top with the other breast cutlet topping the whole thing off. Look at this thing. This isn't the double down. This is the double pain. Even my fat ass can't eat one of these in a single sitting. I had to cut these things into quarters and eat them slowly over the course of the weekend and Monday to not die instantly while eating these. More details on this recipe for the morbidly curious later in the video. So, if it wasn't clear already, what's in this demo is not everything there is to offer in the final game. You might have noticed that little energy bar in the bottom left below my health bar that doesn't really track with how many punches I've been throwing, so who knows? Maybe there's a chance we'll have special abilities. Then there's the bit at the end where once you get through the mission, you flash forward a year as the real player is revived from stasis. I guess it makes sense that we won't be playing as Jackson because he was kind of good at everything. Instead, we get a little peek at the character creator and Agnes, the game's stat system. You choose which attributes you'd like in each category, which have some direct effect on your skills, while others will have more effect on stuff like speech check and things not directly related to your stats. You can pretty much do whatever you want here, even take away points from other skills until they're at their absolute minimum 1 to min-max to your heart's content. There's also money you can collect in-game and a few other odds and ends that I'm sure we'll see further developed in the final game. You get the idea. This demo's more to get your feet wet with the combat and movement systems, and oh yeah, they're doing an Indiegogo. But before I get way into that, I may as well state my case here. Yes, I am breaking my own rules for demos getting videos, but I have my reasoning for it. The rule here is initially for 2 reasons. For one, a demo usually doesn't have enough stuff in it to make a full, interesting video, and the other is that while I only have the tiniest smidgen of influence within this little bitty niche, that's still influence that I must use responsibly. That's why I don't really do sponsorships or paid videos anymore. I can't just go around giving every proof of concept disguised as a demo attention, because most of the time these demos are indeed closer to proof of concepts than slices of something that's actually well into development and ready to be shown to the world. Hell, there are some completed games that aren't ready to be shown off yet. I can't just go to every haha soon TM concept piece that's saying it's going to be the biggest immersive sim since Arx Fatalis and be all like, it's okay boo boo, you just take all the time you need, when sometimes I have reason to believe they haven't even really figured out their roadmap for the game yet on a personal level. I gotta scrutinize things here and make sure that this is something indeed with good odds of seeing the light of day in a reasonable amount of time. The ImSim community is especially aware of projects that seem to be the video game equivalent of the Proto-Mens Act 3, which I have been waiting for since I was a middle schooler, by the way. I'm a patient man. I can vouch for Corpus EDAX because I've been watching it get developed more and more for a couple years now. There's also the fact that this was slated to come out in some extent by the end of this year anyway, and this is just to try to help things along so that Luis can work on this full time. I also feel no need to lie to you here and tell you that it is indeed in my best interest to throw what little weight I have around in order to draw you, a fellow enjoyer of all things 0451 and box stacking, towards promising projects, because if you see fit to pledge and this gets funded, that's another game that I'll have a chance to cover and make a video on later on when it's out. You gotta play the long game on this platform if you don't want to end up being some kid that explodes in popularity but then dies off in a year or so when their audience ages out of the kind of video you do. Well, as far as I can tell, this wasn't initially something that was planned or at least talked about openly until very recently when it was announced a few days before the campaign went live. Luis is only asking for about 10 grand in Eurobucks to work on this game full time until it's done, but of course there are stretch goals which at least to me sound reasonable. Getting an audio guy to help with sound effects, redoing the textures, making nicer models, and other secret cool stuff. I don't see any ridiculous crap like, oh yeah, we're gonna add an entire co-op multiplayer mode, or like ridiculous crap like minifigurines if you pledge a certain amount, or other stupid stuff that just adds a ton of work that doesn't actually get the game finished. Distraction stuff that's just designed to draw you in. There's none of that there that I can see. You'll get the game itself for about 20 Eurobucks or your regional equivalent, and if you want access to the beta as soon as it's available to you, that'll run you 60. I went in on the whole 60 Eurobucks myself because I'm not gonna recommend something to y'all without having skin in the game myself. Also, I'd rather give my 60 bucks to this instead of just dropping 60 bucks on pointless open world game with a recognizable IP wrapped around it number 3,750,005. Because at least when I give my money to this, it goes to making a game and by extension someone's dream happening instead of just being a drop into the swimming pool of profits for some boardroom that's gonna cancel the franchise anyway because of tax wizardry. No matter what you choose to do or not do in regard to Corpus EDAX, it's still a cool demo to play at the end of the day. It's available for free through the Indiegogo page or directly through Luis's itch.io page, which I have linked in the description. I got a solid 2 hours out of it between my initial playthrough and all Violet Snow stealth playthrough, and finally an all stealth playthrough, which was shockingly my fastest by far. That's usually not the case. There's also a nice touch that if you click on through the menu at the beginning of the game, there's this convenient list of new and upcoming indie immersive sims to check out once you've had your fill of Corpus EDAX. To sweeten the pot for Corpus EDAX's Indiegogo, I'm gonna do something a little special myself. I usually have all my recipes for the cooking segments I do be something that's specifically available to $5 tier patrons or higher, but just for this video, the double pain recipe is going to be free to everyone. That's right, no paywall. It's there if you want it. If for some reason you want to make this abomination at home, no patronage is required for just this one time. All I ask for you in exchange is to at least click through the link at the top of the description to go check out Corpus EDAX's Indiegogo campaign, and you don't have to pledge, just give it a look, see if it's something you're interested in. It'd mean the world to Luis. Just make sure to keep an eye on that Indiegogo tip thing if you pull the trigger. And that'll do us for today. Subscribe if you wanna, and don't forget to give Corpus EDAX's demo a spin. If you like the video, you can also help me out by liking it. But more importantly, even if you don't pledge to Corpus EDAX's Indiegogo, try to support the indie MSim scene any way you can. I gotta be honest, the AAA scene has got me worried lately between Redfall looking aggressively generic, and the whole reason I'm able to do this video in the first place is because the System Shock remake has been delayed for the umpteenth time. Let's do that sign-off spiel. Remember that whatever you do, indie games, drawing, reviewing bad movies, or whatever it may be, what you do is not content. It is your art. What we as individuals do is just as deserving, if not more so, of being called our craft as any one of those sequels, reboots, and generic scripts with a recognizable intellectual property wrapped around it does. What you do is inseparable from your ideas, the skills you have honed for ages or simply started working on now because of your passions for it and your will to create. That is what makes it art. Content is a slimy word to generify your art into slop that suits can put in a funnel to feed the masses. Your art deserves that in no way whatsoever. Don't let naysayers in the comments section get you down either. Frodo Baggins, Legolas, and Aragorn are just some guy's OC if you think about it, and every great album that has ever been made just starts as some dudes dicking around with a sound they really like. Fight for your art, because your art is irrevocably you and you are worth fighting for. Stay saucy, everyone. This boy! Was it not enough that you have taken my back support pillow? Now you want daddy's chair too? Oh, thank you. Thank you for your consideration. How considerate of you. You put a bunch of fur in his... That's clever. Sloppy boy, I've got to clean off my chair now. Because somebody needs to clean their wobbles better. Now let's get you some exercise. You want to play with the toy? Would you like to play with the toy? Well, are you just going to contemplate it? This is just so much. I'll come in with like this shampoo and what have you later. For now, I just got a very naughty boy who just sits on whatever he wants because he thinks he owns this place, even though he doesn't even pay a share of the rent.